If you have ever wondered what really happens when we close our eyes for the last time, this might be the most important video you watch this year. In the next few words, I'm going to reveal almost lost transcripts from the man known as the Sleeping Prophet, records that remained hidden for decades and that show a surprisingly detailed vision of our final destiny. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Before we continue, if you value deep content that searches for answers to the big questions of existence, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. It helps us keep bringing these treasures of knowledge and wisdom into your life. Edgar Cayce was not a man who sought fame or recognition. Born into a modest family in Kentucky in 1877, nothing in his childhood suggested he would become one of the most extraordinary sensitives of the 20th century. What set Cayce apart from the other mediums and seers of his time was his unique method. He would enter a state of deep trance, almost like a hypnotic sleep, and from that altered state of consciousness, he would provide accurate medical diagnoses and insights about spiritual matters that challenged the medical and theological knowledge of the day. There were more than 14,000 documented psychic readings throughout his life. But what few people know is that in the last years before his death in 1945, Cayce gave a series of extraordinary readings about what happens at the moment of death and beyond, information that was preserved in rare recordings and transcripts kept in the archives of the ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment. These transcripts, many of which have been recently restored and analyzed, reveal a consistent and detailed vision of the transition of consciousness, a vision that not only contradicts many of the traditional fears associated with death, but also offers a surprisingly comforting perspective on our final journey. Unlike strict religious dogmas or vague speculations, Cayce's descriptions are meticulous, consistent, and most intriguingly, in line with modern accounts of near-death experiences, despite having been recorded decades before those studies became known. In death, Cayce said in one of his most revealing transcripts, is just a wake-up to a broader reality. According to the seer, dying is surprisingly smooth and natural, like gradually waking from a deep sleep, or like leaving one room and entering another. In one of his most detailed readings on this topic, recorded in 1936 for a 58-year-old lady who feared the process of dying, Cayce described, "There is no pain, there is no confusion, just an expansion of consciousness. The person first feels a slight tingling, like when a sleeping limb starts to wake up. There is a feeling of lightness, of liberation. It's as if a weight has been lifted from the entire being." What makes this description particularly noteworthy is that Cayce emphasized that consciousness remains completely intact throughout the entire process. There is no blackout, no emptiness, no loss of identity. Instead, there is a continuity of perception. Only the perspective changes, expanding to include dimensions that were previously invisible to the physical senses. Consciousness, he explained, does not depend on the physical body to exist, just like electricity doesn't depend on a lamp to exist. The lamp is only a temporary vehicle. When the lamp breaks, the electricity continues to exist. It's just no longer manifested through that particular object. This revolutionary view demystifies one of humanity's greatest fears, the fear of the annihilation of consciousness, the fear of simply ceasing to exist. Cayce asserted with conviction, based on thousands of psychic readings, that such annihilation simply does not occur. One of the most fascinating and potentially freeing aspects of Cayce's revelations about life after death is his description of what happens right after the transition. Contrary to traditional views of a severe judgment by an external divinity, Cayce described a very different process, a self-guided life review. There is no external judgment, he said in a 1938 reading, only the judgment of the soul itself, in light of its inner knowledge of the purpose it came to earth with. According to the recovered transcripts, this review is not experienced as punishment or reward, but as a profound process of understanding. The newly disembodied soul relives every significant moment, every choice, every interaction, not only through its own perspective, but also by feeling the impact of its actions on others. The person experiences not only their own emotions, but also the emotions they caused in others, Case explained. A moment of genuine kindness is experienced as radiant light. A moment of cruelty or indifference is felt in its entirety, not as punishment, but as complete understanding. The most surprising part is that, according to Casey, this process takes place in an environment of unconditional love. There is no external condemnation, only the opportunity for the soul to fully understand the patterns of its life, the reasons behind its actions, and the effects it made on the fabric of shared existence. Heaven and hell, Casey said, are not places, but states of consciousness that the soul experiences according to its own nature and development. Perhaps one of the most comforting aspects of Casey's revelations is his consistent description of reuniting with loved ones who passed away before us. In several readings for grieving people, Case confidently asserted that the true bonds of love are not broken by physical death. When the person moves on to the spiritual realm, he revealed in a reading for a widow devastated by the loss of her husband, they are welcomed by those with whom they shared genuine bonds of love. They are not met by strangers, but by familiar faces, loved ones known by heart. This reception, according to Case, is not a casual meeting, but a moment of deep guidance and comfort. The loved ones who have already made the transition act as guides for the newcomer, helping them adjust to the new conditions of existence, explaining aspects of the new reality, and providing a sense of continuity and belonging. Recognition, he explained, does not happen primarily by physical features, although a resemblance might be maintained, but by the unique essence of each soul, just as you would immediately recognize the voice of a loved one on the phone, even without seeing their face. Case described these meetings not as an ethereal and vague experience, but as vibrant and real interactions, with clear communication, heartfelt embraces, although not physical in the earthly sense, and a joy that transcends any comparable earthly experience. Separation is just an illusion of physical perception, he concluded. In the spiritual realm, those united by true love experience a closeness that surpasses any physical proximity possible on the earthly plane. One of the most fascinating revelations in Edgar Cayce's transcripts about life after death refers to the radically different nature of time in the spiritual realm. This change in the perception of time explains many phenomena that seem mysterious from an earthly point of view. Time as you know it, Cayce explained in a 1932 reading, is an illusion created by the Earth's rotation and the limitation of physical senses. In the spiritual realm, time does not flow in a linear way from past to future. Instead, it exists as an expansive continuum where past, present, and future are accessible simultaneously. According to the sleeping prophet, in the post-death dimension we do not move through time. We move through intention and the focus of our consciousness. It's as if all moments exist simultaneously, and the soul can direct its attention to any point in this vast panorama as its will and need dictate. This different perception of time also allows for a different kind of learning. While on Earth learning is sequential and often slow, in the spiritual realm understanding can occur in complete packets of knowledge, absorbed instantaneously by an expanded consciousness. A moment of enlightenment in the spiritual realm, Cayce said, can contain the equivalent of decades of earthly study. The soul absorbs understanding not page by page, but as vast panoramas of integrated knowledge. This concept of time also has deep implications for our understanding of eternity. It is not about an endless duration that could eventually become monotonous, but about an infinite depth of experience, always renewed, always open to exploration in new dimensions of meaning. In one of his most impactful readings on the transition of death, made for a 67-year-old man with a terminal illness, Edgar Cayce was emphatic. The most important preparation for the passage does not occur externally, but in the inner sanctuary of the consciousness. Cayce described the ideal preparation for death not as a set of external rituals or last-minute confessions, but as a gradual process of inner alignment with values and qualities that transcend material existence. What you take with you, he explained, are not your titles, possessions, or external achievements. What remains is the development of character, the capacity to love, the expansion of consciousness, the understanding gained through life's experiences. According to the recovered transcripts, Case recommended 3 essential practices for those who want to consciously prepare for this inevitable transition. First, cultivate inner peace through reconciliation, not only with others, but mainly with yourself. A peaceful consciousness, he said, passes through the veil like a boat that glides smoothly over calm waters. A consciousness disturbed by resentments, unresolved guilt, or deep regrets experiences the passage like a boat in a stormy sea. Second, develop the daily practice of gratitude. Gratitude, Case claimed, is the vibrational frequency that comes closest to spiritual reality. A person who leaves this life in a state of genuine gratitude immediately finds themselves in harmony with the highest frequencies of the spiritual realm. Third, cultivate an awareness of the interconnectedness of all life. When a person realizes they are not an isolated island, but part of a vast ocean of interconnected consciousness, the fear of death diminishes proportionally. There is no real separation, only transformation. What makes these recommendations particularly remarkable is that they do not rely on a specific religious affiliation or particular dogma. They are universal practices accessible to any human being, regardless of their spiritual or cultural background. True love, Casey said in one of his most moving readings for a mother who had lost her daughter, knows no dimensional boundaries. It is not limited by the physical body, nor interrupted by the transition called death. This statement reflects one of the most comforting aspects of Casey's revelations, the continuity of true emotional bonds even after physical death. According to the seer, it is vital to understand the difference between 2 types of connection we maintain with those we love. There is attachment, he explained, which is based on need, on dependency, on the fear of loss. This type of connection really makes it hard both for those who leave and for those who stay. And there is true love, which is based on recognizing the other's eternal essence, on rejoicing in the existence of the loved one, regardless of physical presence. This love not only survives death but blooms in a new dimension of expression. According to the transcripts, Case detailed how the souls in the spiritual realm remain aware of their still embodied loved ones and often seek ways to communicate their ongoing presence and love. Those who have passed remain closer than you might imagine, he said. They are aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your struggles, not as judges, but as loving observers who only wish goodness and growth for those they love. Case explained that communication between realms is not only possible, but happens naturally through multiple channels: vivid dreams, meaningful synchronicities, feelings of presence in times of need, and even sudden inspirations that come when you least expect them. Often, he said, what you call intuition is really the soft voice of those who love you, speaking from the other side of the veil. Not with audible words, but with impressions, with feelings, with that inner knowledge that transcends common logic. For those burdened with guilt or regrets regarding deceased loved ones, Case offered a particularly liberating perspective. In the spiritual realm, understanding is more complete. Those who have passed comprehend your struggles, your limitations, your deepest motives, even those you yourself did not recognize. The forgiveness they seek has already been granted to them. One of the deepest issues Edgar Case addressed in his readings on life after death concerns the unique purpose of each soul. According to him, this understanding becomes crystal clear after the best transition, revealing a pattern of meaning that often remains hidden during physical life. Every soul, Case stated in a 1941 reading, comes to Earth with a specific purpose, a unique contribution to the whole. This purpose rarely aligns with earthly definitions of success or greatness. Often, a soul's highest purpose can be fulfilled through what the world considers a simple and ordinary life. According to the recovered transcripts, after the transition, the soul goes through a period of recognition where it clearly understands the bigger pattern of its existence, seeing not only the isolated events of its recent life, but how they fit into a greater tapestry of evolution and growth that spans multiple existences. The banker who amassed fortunes might discover that his true purpose was in the genuine moment of kindness he showed to a stranger in need, Case explained. The mother who never left her small town may recognize that she created waves of transformation through the unconditional love she demonstrated every day, without fanfare or recognition. This post-death revelation brings deep comfort, especially for those at the end of life, wondering if they did enough or achieved something significant. Case assured that the parameters by which we measure meaning on earth are drastically different from the parameters of spiritual reality. In the spiritual realm, he said, a life is measured not by external achievements, but by growth in love, compassion, and understanding. A genuine smile offered in a moment of darkness may carry more eternal weight than building a business empire. For seniors who often question whether their existence had a greater meaning, Casey's revelations provide a transformative perspective. There are no small or insignificant lives. Every human journey represents an essential chapter in a cosmic story of consciousness unfolding. After the transition, Case concluded, the soul understands that there was never a failure in the earthly sense. There was only experience, learning, and opportunities for growth, some seized, others postponed to another time. In one of his most revealing readings, conducted only a few months before his own passing, Edgar Cayce was asked what the ideal attitude would be if a person knew they had only one day of life remaining. His answer, preserved in the recovered transcripts, offers deep wisdom. If I knew I only had a day to live on this earthly plane, he said, I would devote it entirely to gratitude. Gratitude for the body that served me. Gratitude for the challenges that made me stronger. Gratitude for the relationships that taught me. Gratitude for the miracle of existence in all its forms. According to Cayce, gratitude is not just a passing feeling, but a powerful vibrational force that aligns human consciousness with the highest frequencies of the spiritual reality. A person who truly cultivates gratitude naturally creates a harmonious bridge for the transition. Gratitude, he explained, dissolves the barriers between realms of existence. When you are truly grateful, you are already partly in the spiritual realm, even while occupying a physical body. The transcripts reveal that Cayce considered gratitude a daily practice essential, but particularly transformative in the final stages of life. He recommended a simple yet profound exercise. Take time each day to recognize 3 gifts in 3 different areas. Recognize 3 gifts from the physical world, perhaps the taste of a fruit, the warmth of the sun, the comfort of a bed. Recognize 3 gifts from the realm of relationships, a kind gesture received, a meaningful connection, even a challenge that brought growth. And recognize 3 gifts from your inner world, a moment of peace, an insight gained, a quality you developed in yourself. What makes this practice especially powerful, according to Cayce, is that it gradually recalibrates one's perception, allowing a person to see beyond the limitations and difficulties that often dominate consciousness in the final stages of life. When gratitude becomes your natural state of being, he stated, you don't enter the spiritual realm after death. You simply recognize that you are already there. For those worried about how many days they have left, Cayce offered a liberating perspective. It's not the amount of time that matters, but the quality of consciousness in every moment. One day lived in genuine gratitude is worth more than decades lived in complaint or resentment. A notable aspect of Edgar Cayce's revelations about life after death is its transcendent universality. Although Cayce was raised in the Christian tradition and frequently used Christian terminology in his readings, the essential truths he communicated in trance states crossed religious and cultural boundaries, offering a unifying view of the human experience. The divisions we create between religions, he said in a 1938 reading, are human constructs that have little relevance in the spiritual realm. There, what matters is not which path you followed, but how you walked it, with how much love, compassion, and sincere search for the truth. Cayce emphasized that each individual must find their own inner understanding, their own personal relationship with the deeper realities of existence. He did not advocate for a blind acceptance of his revelations, but encouraged deep reflection and the search for one's inner truth. Don't accept these words just because they were spoken, he warned. Examine them in the light of your own experience, of your own deepest intuition. Truth resonates in the heart when the mind is open and silent. For those who wanted to prepare more deeply for the inevitable transition, Casey suggested 3 practices that go beyond specific traditions. First, the regular practice of silence, not just as the absence of external noise, but as the cultivation of inner quiet where the deepest truths can be intuited. In silence, he said, you begin to hear the language of the soul, a language that will continue to be your companion after the transition. Second, the practice of contemplating nature. Watch a sunset carefully, the movement of the waves, the blooming of a flower, he suggested. In these natural cycles of transformation, the wisdom about your own future transformation is symbolically revealed. Third, the practice of honest but compassionate self-reflection. Know thyself, he quoted the ancient oracle, not with harsh judgment, but with the loving understanding that every experience, every mistake, every triumph is part of your unique journey of awakening. As Case often reminded those who consulted him, death is not an end, but a continuation, not a fall into darkness, but an emergence into a broader, more encompassing light of understanding. The transition you call death, he concluded, is just a birth into an expanded consciousness, just as physical birth was your transition onto this earthly plane. There is nothing to fear, only a new chapter to experience. If you have never considered the possibility that your consciousness might continue after the body shuts down, perhaps it's time to rethink. Edgar Cayce's visions invite us to a revolutionary perspective, that we are eternal beings having a temporary experience in human form, not humans trying to have a spiritual experience. Every part of Cayce's revelations about life after death converges into one central truth. We are here not just to do and achieve, but to become more aware, more compassionate, more awakened to our true multidimensional nature. Before we finish, I'd like to ask you to leave a comment letting me know which aspect of these revelations touched your heart the most or sparked your curiosity. Also, share this video with someone who might be facing fears about death or the process of dying, be it a dear elderly person or someone dealing with the grief of a recent loss. Knowledge has the power to heal when shared with compassion. Also, if this content resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are working on a complete series exploring Edgar Cayce's deepest and most transformative readings on various aspects of the human journey. In the final words of a man who examined the veil between worlds more than 14,000 times, I remind you of the central message Cayce left us. No one leaves alone. No one is lost in the process. Consciousness continues its eternal journey of discovery, only in a new environment, with new possibilities. And perhaps this is the most revolutionary revelation of all. Death, that great mystery so many fear, may not be a tragic end, but a portal to an expansion of consciousness that our limited physical senses can barely imagine. As Cayce used to say, death is just the beginning of an even greater adventure. As we say goodbye today, take with you this final thought from the sleeping prophet. Live each day not as if it were your last, but as if it were part of an eternal story, because that's exactly what it is. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Until we meet again, nurture peace, gratitude, and that wonderful curiosity about the mysteries around us. As Edgar Cayce said, the greatest gift we can offer the universe is our own awakened consciousness.